Art Deco is a movement that many people are familiar with, although it's frequently mistaken for some of these other ideas. And Art Deco is actually not typically American. It actually comes out of Europe, and we'll get to that in a moment. Now, this is the predominant decorative art style of the 1920s and 30s, characterized by precise and boldly delineated geometric shapes, strong colors, and used most notably in household objects and architecture. It's that linearity that is going to stand out for Art Deco, and the use of straight line far more than curvilinear line as we saw in Art Nouveau. For example, that whiplash line is gone, and any line that we see in Art Deco tends to be very regular, very mechanical, as if it was drawn by a compass, for example. Now, Art Deco really starts with the 1925 exhibition of decorative art in Paris. And this is going to be a key show. This is really where we see Art Deco finally taking off. So what are we going to see? We're going to see them developing numerous materials, household materials, jewelry, textiles, cinema posters. Metropolis, of course, a very famous Art Deco movie. Pottery, we see Roseville as our example there. Household appliances, as we see in the lower right. So it's a spectacularly broad movement, far more so than many of the others that we've seen. We've been growing from the neoclassical through many of the Victorian ideas, which are kind of eclectic and mixed, to the Art Nouveau and arts and crafts ideas. And now we're really have a movement that's interacting with consumer culture and encouraging a lot of change in consumer aesthetic. Now, it comes out of post-World War I austerity, primarily in Europe. And the problem is most of these European countries, of course, are in incredible debt because they've bought all of these materials for the war, primarily from the United States, but from other countries as well. And so they're going through a very rough time. We see soup lines. Here's an image again from the Weimar Republic where someone is actually burning the money because it's so valueless, burning it for heat. So very common sort of image from the time. And what we see is this reaction directly against austerity. They're looking for luxurious things. They're looking to subvert society. Think cabaret if you're trying to put this in, say, musical terms. So we see certain level of ambiguity. We see a certain level of ostentatiousness. People want to stand out. They want to have a good time. And they're cutting so much in the rest of their lives that they're going to look for things to give them a sense of happiness. They're also going to be heavily influenced by the discovery in 1922 of Tutankhamun's tomb. And this will lend an Egyptian air to much of what we see as Art Deco. In terms of materials, we see the use of, for example, brushed metal, very, very common, not always chrome, but frequently some form of brushed metal with that slightly matte sheen to it, although sometimes it is a bright sheen as well. We'll see the use of etched and colored glass as well as leaded glass as we see here. We will see the use of black lacquer, again, that Japanese influence coming through in a lot of their furniture. And in fact, we see some Japanese influence even here in the form and overall structure and linearity, really rectilinearity of this piece. In terms of design, it tends to be symmetrical. It tends to be very measured. So very predictable, very repetitive. If you see plant and animal life, it's going to be heavily stylized. But generally, you're looking for something very linear, very, very repetitive. Now, the whole thing comes to an end with World War II because, of course, we hit a level where austerity is a necessity, things change, but the aesthetic of Art Deco will continue on. And in fact, it's used frequently today for so-called vintage and retro travel posters or vintage and retro looks to things. If you're looking for something that would look early 20th century, this is frequently the style you go back to. So it does become very effective today, and it's a very popular style today. People still seek out Art Deco furniture and Art Deco decorative items.